And at that time, Jessica got up and she said, call 911, I can't breathe, and then she collapsed. And at that point, I understand that the assistant manager hit her one more time, but even before that, she was trying to go back into the back office and try to delete the video of the attack.
This is so crazy. This 24-year-old clocked into her job at 7-Eleven and was murdered by her manager. This is Jessica McLaughlin. She was working her shift at 7-Eleven in Melrose Avenue in Hollywood when her manager, Valeria Pera, attacked her during an argument. This is the assistant manager, which still has not been found or arrested, by the way. It's not clear what the argument was about, but she allegedly threw a bottle at Jessica, pinned her to the ground, and then sat on her chest. There were other co-workers there while this was all going down, and they said that they tried to get Valeria off Jessica's chest, but then Valeria tried to attack them. Mind you, she was sitting on Jessica's chest for over 10 minutes, and when she finally got off, Jessica was unconscious, and the workers tried to do CPR on her, and while they were performing CPR, Valeria ran to the back and tried to delete all the surveillance footage. They called police right away, but Valeria fled on a bike and still hasn't been found. This is so sad because Jessica was declared brain dead at the hospital, and after almost 2 weeks, her family decided to remove her from life support. Jessica's family then said that Valeria bullied and harassed her at work for a while, but they never thought that it would ever come to this.
If kids ran the airport, the boarding passes would be chocolate bars. Security checks just walk through a unicorn that sneezes sparkles.
So apparently the original TikTok account that posted this audio and that video has been hijacked by pedophiles that are looking to trade and enjoy CP together. Now, this is all technically hearsay, but from reading all the comments online and deep diving into this, it seems like this original account was basically created so that bots could spam the comments with Telegram links. If you don't know what Telegram is, it's essentially a heavily encrypted messaging app. And over the last few years, it has attracted so many pedophiles because they can basically openly trade CP on there, and it's nearly impossible to catch them. And I mean, obviously, if you look into all of this and you know some of the symbolism, you know that there are some disturbing elements to the original audio and video itself. But I've seen so many posts with people talking about this and how everybody needs to be vigilant. And on forums like Reddit, people have openly talked about how they've seen these links being posted, and how some of these accounts will paste the links directly in their bio on TikTok. This is just a reminder and a bit of a warning if you hear this audio or you see a video using this audio, because it clearly has some sort of disturbing intention. If you want to hear me talk more about topics like this, listen to my podcast, The Conspiracy Files, available on all streaming platforms, or watch the show on my YouTube channel.
People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident. Jason Padgett was a party animal who hated school and got terrible grades. But one day, 2 men savagely robbed and attacked Jason outside of a karaoke bar, leaving him with a severe concussion. The concussion caused him to become a mathematical genius and made him learn fractal geometry, which he had never been taught before. When Derek Amato was 39 years old, he hit his head after diving into a swimming pool and was diagnosed with a concussion and 35% hearing loss. After that, Derek began to see black and white keys in his head, and out of nowhere, he began to play the piano like an expert. Ben McMahon was in a car accident in 2015 and fell into a coma for a week. When he woke up, he could speak perfect Chinese even though he had only learned the basics as a child. Tony Ciceria was struck by lightning after making a call in a phone booth. Within a couple days, he was addicted to music, which he wasn't before. After trying the piano, he became a musical artist, composing his own music.
A flight attendant who was on board this Delta flight is pointing fingers, accusing the airline of showing a reckless disregard for passenger safety by using an inexperienced pilot in a bombshell new lawsuit. Vanessa Miles was traveling as a passenger when the flight crash-landed and burst into flames after flipping over and skidding on the tarmac. Miraculously, all 76 passengers and 4 crew members survived the horrific crash. Miles was left unconscious and dangling upside down by her seatbelt following the accident. Now Miles is seeking $75 million in damages, claiming the airline knowingly assigned an inexperienced and inadequately trained pilot to the flight, causing the fiery crash. The lawsuit claims the airline cut corners on safety by rushing pilots through training programs and knowingly putting passengers at risk. The unidentified captain of the plane had worked for Endeavor Air, a subsidiary of Delta, for 18 years.
Did this lady actually call herself from the future? User Mystery Mint submitted a story to unexplainedmysteries.com. She said that she often experiences strange phenomenon, but this one still remains a mystery to her. She said that in high school, each classroom had a phone that could receive a call from any other room in the school, as long as that room had a telephone too. One day, during lunch hour, she was inside her art classroom, waiting for a call from the office. She was growing impatient, so she picked up the phone and called the office instead. She said that the phone usually always worked, but this time she just heard static. She waited to hear the secretary, but she just heard more static, so she said hello. But still, nothing. She suddenly got embarrassed and said, "Sorry, wrong number," and hung up. She said that not even a second later, the phone rang. She thought that it was the office calling to yell at her because it sounded like a student was playing a prank on them. What she heard instead still confuses her. She picked up the phone ready to apologize, but instead, she just heard static. Before she could say anything, she heard someone say in an all too familiar voice, "Hello?" Then more static. She said that she couldn't say anything, she just froze. There was more static, and then they said, "Sorry, wrong number," and hung up. She wonders if she somehow managed to call herself from the future.
This 10-year-old girl beat an alligator in a 1v1. In 2017, 10-year-old Juliana Oso was in knee-deep water at Moss Park in Orlando, Florida when something horrific happened. Out of nowhere, a nearly 9-foot-long alligator surged from the water and latched onto her leg. The force dragged her under as the reptile tried to spin and pull her deeper. But Juliana didn't panic. She fought back. She began punching the alligator as hard as she could, but nothing worked. Then, in a terrifying moment of clarity, she remembered something she learned at Gatorland, a local wildlife park, that if you block a gator's nostrils, it can't breathe. While still trapped in the gator's jaws, Juliana shoved 2 fingers up its nose. The alligator, unable to breathe, released her. Bleeding and in pain, she ran for her life and screamed for help. Park rangers rushed her to the hospital where she was treated for puncture wounds and received 10 stitches. Miraculously, she survived with no life-threatening injuries, and the craziest part, her parents said she was calm the entire time, even joking later that she fought off an alligator and won. At just 10 years old, Juliana turned a deadly attack into a story of survival and pure courage.
Let's see if you have a phobia. I'm going to show you 5 photos. If you feel too uncomfortable to make it to the 5th photo, then you could have a phobia. So let's go. Number 1. Feeling uncomfortable yet? And how about this? Nearly there. Last one. If those photos made you feel uncomfortable, then you could have a phobia, which is the fear of snakes. Follow now to see if you can make it through the next phobia test.
Something has changed with La Pasqualita. Like, something is very, very different with this mannequin. If you don't remember this story too well, she resides in Chihuahua, Mexico. She's been in a store shop window for over 100 years. It was believed for a long time that the mannequin would move or had like an all-knowing stare. It would come alive at night, like a lot of like folklore stuff. The more morbid legend and the more true crime-oriented legend is that she is actually sort of an embalming experiment. Possibly the former shop owner's daughter who died tragically on her wedding day over 100 years ago. People tend to fixate on the hyper-realistic details of this mannequin where they talk a lot about the hands, the realistic fingernails, they talk about veins in the face. The weird part is that she went missing for a period of time. She was removed from the window and then reappeared looking like this. It looks like La Pasqualita. It does, but there's something that's very different. She looks polished or refreshed, like they repainted her. Very curious to hear what you think.
Bible places in real life. Sea of Galilee, where Jesus walked on water. Synagogue, where Jesus would have gone. The Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed before he was taken. The Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized. Tomb of Jesus. Noah's Ark. The stone that Moses hit and water came out. Jesus nailed to the cross on Mount Calvary.
Doja Cat came at Sydney Sweeney and now she's paying the price. So at this point, we all know that Sydney Sweeney had a very controversial American Eagle ad. Well, Doja Cat decided to parody this ad and sort of come at Sydney Sweeney with the way that she talks in this parody. And it ended up backfiring, and now Doja Cat is getting canceled. So according to people online, Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad is based on an ideology that a certain German man would love. Put more simply, people are saying it is an arsist ad. Well, if you don't know, Doja Cat has a very well-documented arsist past that is a lot worse than anything Sydney Sweeney has done. So because of this dig that Doja Cat took at Sydney Sweeney, this arsist past is being brought back up, and now everyone canceling Sydney has switched their targets from Sydney to Doja. Basically, everyone's saying that Doja Cat has absolutely no room to speak out against Sydney when she's done significantly worse. People have done things like repost old screenshots, old videos, old pictures of Doja, and there's even people making whole video essays on Doja, going over every single thing that she has done in her past that would be considered arsist.
People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident. In 1971, Edwin Robinson was in a severe car crash that made him completely blind and partially deaf. 9 years later, he ventured outside his home to rescue his pet chicken from the rain when he was suddenly struck by lightning. But due to the high-voltage blast from the lightning strike, he miraculously could see and hear perfectly fine again. During Adam Rayner's early life, he suffered from dwarfism, and at his tallest, he came in at 4.5 feet. But at the age of 21, he developed a tumor on his pituitary gland, which led him to grow to a staggering 7 feet 8 inches within a few years. This made him the only human to ever be classified as both a dwarf and a giant in the same lifetime. Rory Curtis got into a car accident that was so severe he fell into a coma for several days. Thankfully, he came out of it, and when he woke up, he could magically speak perfect French, even though he had only taken a few French lessons 12 years before the accident.
A 70-year-old woman's life was taken by an elephant, and once it was time for her funeral, it came back. 70-year-old Maya Murmu lived in a small village in India. She lived a simple life. She would help her family with chores and would collect water from the village well every morning. On June 22nd of 2022, Maya went to fetch water like she always did. But that morning, a wild elephant believed to have wandered from a nearby sanctuary charged at her. It trampled Maya and she died instantly from her injuries. Once the village heard about this, they were heartbroken, shocked, and mourning her loss. Later that night, her family and neighbors gathered for a traditional funeral. As the ceremony was beginning, the same elephant returned. It stormed the gathering and once again attacked Maya's lifeless body. The elephant trampled Maya's body again and then fled into the forest. Nobody knows why that same elephant returned, but many believe that elephants don't forget. They have deep memories and sometimes emotional responses. To this day, no one in that village knows why that same elephant attacked twice or if Maya was just in the wrong place, wrong time.
He turned plastic waste into gasoline and now he's missing. So this guy, Julian Brown, found a way to turn plastic into usable gasoline for vehicles. Well, now Julian has gone missing under mysterious circumstances, and he actually left us some hints that something might happen to him in his previous videos. You see, in one of these videos, he opened the video by saying he's not going to live long. And then he later in the video goes on to mention how threats won't derail him from what he's trying to do. Julian also made a video where he said that there was odd stuff going on, and he said that he was, quote, under attack. Now, if you put two and two together, it kind of seems like Julian may have been threatened for what he's doing. I mean, there is a meme that whenever someone's about to disrupt a big industry, such as the oil or medical industry, they end up mysteriously going missing. Now, Julian's fans think that something very sinister happened to him, so they're trying to bring as much attention to this as they possibly can. For all we know right now, Julian could just simply be on vacation, as it hasn't been too terribly long since he posted last. But like I said, his fans seem to think otherwise.
Bullies called this kid a monkey, but what the internet did when they heard his story will restore your faith in humanity. This 21-year-old boy is named Zanzaman Eli, and his whole life he has been bullied for the way he looks. looks. Zanziman has a medical issue that makes his head smaller than the rest of his body, and people in his village bully him and call him a monkey because he eats grass, climbs trees, and just lives an unusual lifestyle. He was bullied and beaten by all the people in the village because he was seen as an animal and not a human being. And the more he was bullied and pushed around, the more he feared people. It caused him to run away from home every single day and into the jungle, which made his family extremely worried because there are dangerous animals in the jungle. But after Zanziman's story went viral, a YouTuber named Afromax started a GoFundMe for the family, which raised a ton of money. $6,000 to be specific. Afromax gave his mom all of the money and they actually bought a brand new home to give Zanziman a better life. People who are 1 in a million. This girl's name is Zhang Rufang and she is over 100 years old. But a few years ago, something strange happened. She started growing a horn on her head. At first, it started off small, but now it's grown up to 6 centimeters in length. But the craziest part is she's actually starting to grow a second horn on the other side. And doctors have offered to remove it from her head, but she refuses. Before I show you the craziest one, I just found a way you can find your celebrity lookalike, and apparently I look like Mr. Beast. If you want to know who your celebrity lookalike is, just press this link in the comments. Next up is Nong Yusoi, and he has perfect night vision. And the strange part about this is both his parents have brown eyes, but he has blue eyes. When everyone else sees darkness, he sees perfectly in the middle of the night.
I mean, a big part of his fortune has to be gone by now, and now he has all these civil lawsuits. Will there be anything left?
It's my understanding and it's my assumption that Mr. Combs has plenty of money, plenty of cash, and plenty of assets to pay his lawyers and to pay out any judgment that will potentially be brought against him. That's my understanding and that's my hope as we pursue these cases. Certainly, defending a criminal case with, I think he had 2 rows of defense attorneys. Yeah. I know that is not cheap. We have certainly had circumstances where we have won judgments against, those who allege that they're millionaires, billionaires, but refuse to sort of cooperate with the collection process. And we then have to pursue those judgments. Unfortunately, I would say it's one of the flaws in the American judicial system that while paying judgments is not optional, it's mandatory. You still have to sometimes go and chase those judgments. But again, we are moving forward under the assumption that if there is a judgment against Mr. Combs, that we will be able to collect on it and we will pursue collection on it.
Videos that seem innocent but have a disturbing backstory. This cheesy dating show from the 1970s shows Rodney Alcala winning a date with the female contestant. Rodney was believed to have killed up to 130 women and appeared on the dating show during his killing spree. Luckily for the female contestant, she didn't go on a date with Rodney as she felt he gave off a creepy vibe. This video shows Chris Watts pleading for the return of his missing pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. At the time of this interview, he had already killed his pregnant wife and 2 daughters and put their bodies in oil tanks. And at the end of the interview, he has asked this question.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
The woman you are looking at is going to do something that's going to shock the world. This is Amy Carlson, or also known as Mother God. Amy was a regular suburban mom who worked at McDonald's, loved singing, and lived a pretty normal life. But something changed around 2006 when she became deeply obsessed with conspiracy theories and had this divine intervention that she was sent from God. She began claiming she was an eternal sent to save humanity from all of its weaknesses. Some of her wild claims were she has lived 534 past lives, including being Jesus himself, Cleopatra, and even Marilyn Monroe. Over time, she built a cult-like following and created a group amongst themselves called Love Has Won. The outside world, this looked like a spiritual community meant to promote positivity, but inside was much, much darker. They treated her like a god, and she even created these strict rules such as no negativity, no talking back, and you must be loyal to her at all time. If the group members broke any of these rules, she would make them starve. In April of 2021, police were called to a remote house in Colorado, and the scene looked like something out of a horror movie. Her body was found in a sleeping bag covered in Christmas lights, surrounded by essential oils and glitter in what looked like a makeshift shrine. Her skin had a grayish purple tint to it, and her eyeballs were missing. The worst part is the followers were inside of the home, and some even sleeping within inches of her corpse. One of the followers even had a child there, and none of them were panicking because Amy had just ascended and she would return. 7 of the members were arrested, but all charges were eventually dropped. But to this day, some of her followers still continue to post online claiming that Amy will return. Make sure to like and follow for more videos tomorrow.
3 conspiracy theories about presidents. Number 3. George W. Bush and 9/11s. One of the most controversial and widely discussed conspiracy theories concerning American presidents involves George W. Bush and the attacks of September 11th, 2001. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the Bush administration had prior knowledge of the attacks, or worse, that they orchestrated them. Although these claims have been widely debunked by various investigations, they remain a topic of debate and speculation for many. Number 2. Assassination of Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, died suddenly in 1850 after just 16 months in office. While his death was attributed to natural causes, some believe he was poisoned because of his anti-slavery views. In the 1990s, his remains were exhumed and tested to confirm or debunk this theory, but no signs of poisoning were found. Number 1. Thomas Jefferson and the cold. A lesser-known conspiracy theory suggests that Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers and the 3rd President of the United States, concealed a secret illness, often described as a chronic cold. Some believe that this illness might have influenced his decisions and policies. However, this theory lacks solid evidence and is generally viewed as speculation.
Nine things that have happened since Diddy was arrested. Leonardo DiCaprio left the country after photos and videos were released of him at Diddy parties. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis have also left the country after photos and videos of Ashton surfaced at Diddy parties. Michael Jackson's death case has been reopened. Whitney Houston's death case has also been reopened. Beyoncé lost 5 million followers and is being investigated. Liam Payne tragically passed away. Netflix is already making a documentary about Diddy. Kardashians are under investigation. A $50 million bail has been denied and Diddy is in isolation. How do you think all of this will play out, and who else should be investigated in this case?
3 animals wiped out by humans we'll likely never know again. Number 3. The Steller's sea cow, a majestic marine mammal of immense size, once inhabited the serene coasts of the North Pacific. Just 27 years after its discovery in 1741, it was hunted to extinction, showcasing the vulnerability of the ecosystem and the devastating impact of human intervention. The swift disappearance of the Steller's sea cow offered little chance for in-depth study. Hence, it haunts marine life history records as a ghostly reminder of our past. Number 2. The great auk, known as the northern penguin, was once a dominant figure in the North Atlantic, notable for its large size and inability to fly. This bird met an untimely end in the mid-19th century, hunted to extinction. It now stands as a powerful and enigmatic symbol of the devastation caused by human intervention, primarily through overhunting and inadequate conservation efforts, raising questions about our interactions with the natural world. Number 1. The thylacine, also called the Tasmanian tiger, was an iconic species and the largest carnivorous marsupial of modern times. Native to the remote corners of Tasmania, Australia, and New Guinea, this captivating creature was officially declared extinct in the 20th century. Today, it exists only in photographs and tales, a chilling reminder of our planet's lost biodiversity and the irreversible loss we experience when a species is lost.
Let's see if you have nyctophobia. I'm going to show you 5 photos. Try your best to make it through all 5. Let's start the test. How does this dark hole make you feel? How about walking home at night alone? Walking down this hallway with no flashlight? Looking out of the window and seeing this? Or looking out at night to see this figure? So how did you do? Did you make it through all 5? If not, then you could have nyctophobia, which is the fear of the night or darkness. Let me know if you have nyctophobia in the comments below. And remember to hit the plus sign and follow me to see if you can make it through the next phobia test.
7 people in this world that hold physical keys to the security of the internet. It's not like they control the internet, but like if one of them were to mess up, they could very well make very core parts of the internet just disappear. Less than 60% of the internet's traffic is human. Over 40% are bots, and 30% of that 40% are malicious and actively trying to go after you and your data. The internet created brand new reasonings for all sorts of things, but especially divorce. Like in 2011, became the year that over a third of divorce filings mentioned the word Facebook. The internet and all of the electrons that are holding the data weigh less than a grain of sand. And it's actually losing weight, it's getting skinnier, because in 2000 it weighed about the same mass of a strawberry. What does Wi-Fi stand for? Does anybody actually know before I say it? It's a trick question. Wi-Fi doesn't actually stand for anything. They just called it that. The reason Facebook is just so blue is because Mark Zuckerberg is red-green colorblind.
She took her first bite of meat and suddenly craved human flesh. This is Raw, a shocking French horror movie about a girl named Justine who is a lifelong vegetarian and starts veterinary school. During a brutal hazing ritual, she is forced to eat raw rabbit liver for the very first time. At first, she gets violently sick, but then the cravings start. She can't stop thinking about meat, and soon animal meat isn't enough. Her body begins to change, she scratches at her skin, and her hunger only grows. Everything spirals out of control when she accidentally tastes human flesh and realizes she likes it. At that moment, her cravings start to become uncontrollable, and the people around her notice that something is very wrong. This movie is bloody, disturbing, and unforgettable. Raw will leave you queasy and questioning your own appetite.
Prison cells in different countries. In Mexico, the prison cell. In China, the prison cell. In Russia, the prison cell. In Japan, the prison cell. In the United States, the prison cell. In Norway, the prison cell. In Brazil, the prison cell.
Ryan Kohberger, who murdered 4 University of Idaho students, will be put on trial in July. Let's talk about where he is now and all the events that happened leading up to the trial. Right off the bat, this case was really weird. He murdered 4 people inside of a campus rental in Moscow, Idaho. There were 2 others that were home that didn't even hear these 4 people getting murdered by him and getting stabbed to death. Those 2 were unarmed and they were ruled out as suspects. And everybody thought that was ridiculous when it first happened. Everyone thought it was those 2. He was eventually caught, but the weird thing about him, he had a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. The master's degree was in criminal justice. I know, very ironic here. Now, at the time of the murders, he was getting his PhD in criminology. People described him as quiet, but very intelligent and curious. However, many people noted he had a very anti-woman stance. He even got a warning from a bar about not talking to the women and not coming back because he was creeping everyone out. Before the murders happened in the house, he found a few of the girls on Instagram and messaged a couple of them with no response back. They didn't follow him back. This was just a couple weeks before the murder, so was he stalking them? There were just a few pieces of information that they had on him. One was that he had a white car. One other thing that was very important at the crime scene was a knife sheath. They found his DNA inside of that. He got pulled over twice after committing the murders. He was on a road trip with his dad. His dad obviously didn't know about the murders either. He was let go with verbal warnings both times that he got pulled over. Now obviously with the DNA, the evidence, and everything matching up, they decided to go after him for the 3rd time. Now, he's claiming he has an alibi on the night of the murders, that he went hiking to see the stars, but they're going to use his cell phone data to try to see if that lines up and if he's telling the truth. But with his DNA being in the knife sheath at the scene of the crime, I doubt that. He's currently staying at a local jail 300 miles away from where the murders were committed. He will stand trial in July, like I said. What are your opinions on this case? Anything stick out to you or weird you out about this case? Let me know. I think one of the stranger things about this case was that he was narrating that everything was going to be okay to himself without speaking to anyone. I feel like at that point the pressure was starting to get to him. He knew he was about to get cooked. We'll see what happens in July though.
Do you guys remember this woman, Taylor Shabusiness? She just spoke with Law and Crime from prison, sharing the horrific graphic details of her crime. As a reminder, in 2022, Taylor Shabusiness murdered her partner, Shad Therion, during a, quote, drug-fueled sex rampage. She then dismembered his body and put his severed head in his mom's basement for her to discover. The discovery was made on February 23, 2022, and shortly after, Taylor Shabusiness was arrested and charged with Shad's murder. She initially pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but in 2023, she was deemed to have been sane when she committed the murder. Shabusiness was ultimately convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, this week, 2 years after her sentencing, Shabusiness spoke with Law and Crime in a phone call from prison. And in the call, she detailed what happened the night of Shad's murder, including what led up to the attack. And just a warning, this is graphic. I'm not including too much of the graphic content, but it is rough. This is an exact transcript of what Shabusiness said to Law and Crime. She said, "I went to my ex, who was a Satan disciple. We all Latin kings, so we beef and we don't F with SDs. She said she gave him money for drugs and he pocketed the cash. She said that Shad wanted to have intercourse before she left, so they went into the basement, and that's when he pulled out 2 chains, according to her. Then Shad told him that he didn't have her money, so she said, I took a chain and put it around his neck and asked him again where my money at. Then she said he pocketed the money that I was supposed to have, so I went out and took his out with that." And then she said this, and I'm not even gonna read it, you can read it. Shabusiness said that Shad turned purple, but his heart was still beating, so she grabbed a knife from the kitchen upstairs, and that's when she committed that second part. She said she then dismembered his body, cleaned up the crime scene, and loaded some of the body parts into her trunk. She planned to get rid of the body, but was arrested before she could do so. In the phone call, Shabusiness also told Law and Crime that she is trying to appeal her conviction and get out of prison, but I don't think this phone call is going to help with those appeals. The fact that somebody could do this and then detail it so anecdotally is terrifying. Rest in peace, Shad.
One of the men that you just watched kiss that baby, which is officially their adopted child, is a registered sex offender. Meet Brandon Keith Mitchell. This is the man in question. He's from Pennsylvania. And a few years ago, Mitchell and his husband did a crowdfunding effort, and they raised enough money to basically hire somebody to become a surrogate for them and carry a child, which they then adopted. But as it turns out, Brandon Keith Mitchell, one of the new fathers of this baby, is a Tier 1 sex offender in Pennsylvania. He was arrested in 2016 for attempting to solicit a 16-year-old boy for sexual abuse. And if for some reason you don't believe me, here's the proof. When Brandon was arrested in 2016, he was employed as a chemistry teacher at a high school, and he was charged with multiple felonies, including possession of child pornography, sexual abuse of children, endangering the welfare of children, and corruption of minors. This information comes from a press release from the Chester County District Attorney's Office dated February 9th, 2016. So this guy's a known pedophile who is on the sex offender registry, and there was nothing in Pennsylvania law that stopped him from adopting a child through surrogacy. And people are outraged about this. But there were literally no laws. There was nothing that could stop this guy from adopting this baby through this process. And obviously now the internet is outraged with this. And yes, the baby is still in his possession. I get asked all the time, why do I focus on subjects like this through my videos? Why do I make content surrounding these issues? And why am I constantly trying to raise awareness around this stuff? It's because of cases like this. There are so many individual cases like this where the laws just are not strong enough for these crimes. I mean, this guy was charged with some absolutely horrific stuff, and the fact that just less than a decade later, he's already out on the street, able to adopt a child through surrogacy, is incredibly alarming and deeply disturbing. And in every state, there are laws that could be strengthened, and people just need to be more vigilant and aware of their neighbors and their surroundings. I am assuming that something is now going to be changed in Pennsylvania law. And if somebody starts a petition for this law to be changed, I will be sure to post it in my bio. But yeah, I honestly do get sick of covering stories like this. But until the day that something actually begins to change, it seems like I'm going to have to keep talking about it.